क्या हो गया? शॉप देख रहा है, शॉप, आइटम शॉप।
खर्चा कर रहा हूँ।
कर भी दिया, क्या खरीद लिया भाई?
2 इमोट्स।
ओके, इमोट्स, हाँ फिर भी अच्छे।
साले
इमोट्स लेते रहता हूँ।
क्या स्पेंडिंग, साले इतना मेरे को गाली देता है कि ये गेम फालतू है, उसको इतना फिर बाद में खर्चा भी करेगा। अभी देख बैटल पास भी आने वाला है उसके पास सब।
भाई
नहीं,
तो
मैंने
इतना
तो
तेज क्यों कह रहा है?
इतना तेज नहीं कह रहा मैं।
तेरी आवाज मैंने
He
इतनी
is
कम
bad.
कर दी, उसके बाद भी इतनी
आजू
तेज
बाजू
आ
बहुत
रहा है।
लोग हैं तो मेरे को लग रहा है कि मेरा आवाज नहीं सुनाई देगा।
कहाँ पे मिलता है मेरी टीम?
भाई तेरे को इनवाइट करा।
हाँ, मैं वो दिख ही नहीं रहा था। रेडी करना है कुछ क्या है?
रेडी करना, मैंने बोला कर गए।
तो रेडी है ना इसमें भी।
बैटल रॉयल 0।
मस्त इमोट है। और ये लिया मैंने। यस शोना गेस कौन सी इमोट लिए मैंने? यश wanna watch stream?
एक सेकंड। अभी तक
हाँ।
कौन सा था पता नहीं, बट ठीक
मैच चालू होगा ना तब देख लेना।
है। कंस्ट्रक्शन ऑफ इवेंट्स में क्या देना है? प्राइमोरियल सी वाटर।
क्या? रेड डेड?
नहीं, अरे बाबा
तो भी जिंगल
आ रहा है।
यार गाचा उसका बहुत टेम्पटिंग है, इसलिए मैं नहीं खेलता हूँ।
बहुत। अरे स्टोरी कंप्लीट कर रहा था साला, 14 घंटे का स्टोरी है।
कितने घंटे का स्टोरी है उसका? गाचा इतना टेम्पटिंग है, मैं नहीं खेला वो चीज।
गाचा क्या?
उसका गाचा नहीं, जनरल गाचा वैसे ही है। ये फिश दे लब देश पे।
ओके।
अरे अरे ठीक है, बट वहाँ पे स्किन अच्छे आते हैं ना, कैरेक्टर इतने अच्छे बने हैं ना, तो लेने की इच्छा होती है।
अच्छा तो तू वहाँ पे जाके भी खर्चा कर देगा, इसलिए कह रहा है।
और इधर का खर्चा ना फोर्टनाइट के खर्चों से बहुत बहुत अलग लेवल पे हो गया। इधर मिनिमम पर कैरेक्टर $100 जाएगा भाई का, लक खराब रहेगा तो।
फॉलो है
जम
है।
हैमर है यार बंद हुआ था ये शॉटगन बहुत अच्छी है रैपिड फायर टाइप शॉटगन
चलेगा इसके लिए एक्सेल बोला कि ठीक है मैं उसको बुलाता हूँ।
अरे भाई
87 जीबी की गेम डाउनलोड कर रहे हैं मैंने
2-3 दिन से पीछे पड़ा है
वो अपने को कुछ बात कर हो रहा है तेरे पास इंटरनेट भी पास है तो
एक
भी कम
क्या?
नहीं है
नहीं
हाँ, वो खत्म
होने
हो
का
गया।
वजह से ना
हाँ, कुछ भी चीज़ रहता है
ले लेते हैं ना उसमें क्या ये लो ये मेरे से HDFC की ऐप से उसको पेमेंट कर दो
ओ शिफ्ट दबाने के राइट
हैं
अच्छा क्या
HDFC में वो कर दो ना पे
वेरी वेरी
सेंड मनी कर यहाँ पे ये लेके जा सकते हैं गाइजर म्यूट हो रहा हूँ रही है ना मेरी? वो मैंने मार्कर लगाया था ना, गाड़ी लेके करने के लिए। भेज रहा हूँ सब सही में। ये पिस्टल वाली गन मिले तो
गोल्डन वाला बंदा फॉक्स क्या
भेज दिया तुमको आईडी पासवर्ड है। लॉन्च पैड करके निकलने
ऊपर आ जाओ। ये लॉन्च पैड के सुपर लॉन्च पैड है, पर्पल दिख रहा है तेरे वाला।
पर्पल ही है वो। ट्रैप एज ट्रैप काउंट नहीं होगा, बैकपैक की जगह भेजता है।
इसकी हाइट बहुत ज़्यादा है।
अरे यार एक तो पता नहीं आवाज क्यों। अरे
मेरी बात तेको पता है, मैं बोला हम लोग क्वीन लड़ेंगे, क्वीन से लड़ने के लिए लोग हमें मारने आएंगे।
एक मिनट
मैं
रुक जा, एक
स्टार्टिंग
तो
में ही
मेरा
बोला था।
ऑडियो ऑडियो थोड़ा फक्ड अप चल रहा है।
नो 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 नो, डोंट
No, no,
ब्लेम
no,
ऑन
no,
द
no, no, no.
ऑडियो। तूने ही बोला कि लोग आए हुए हैं, सारा चीज तेरे को ही पता था। और मैं बोलूं कि
लॉजिक
लोग आए
लॉजिक
हुए
लगता क्या
हैं,
है?
तूने सुना है। अरे लॉजिक नहीं यूज कर रहे ना, इसके लिए तो इसके बहाने काम नहीं कर रहे। बहाने देने तो लॉजिक के साथ दो।
एक सेकेंड यार, रुक जा।
और एक बार रुकने को बोला, मैं जा रहा है।
ये बंदी का आवाज क्या प्यारा है यार।
She's the giggle at a funeral. 'Cause everybody's just a
गेगल एट द फ्यूनरल।
fool. Should have
क्या?
listened to her
गेगल
song.
एट द फ्यूनरल।
If the heavens ever did speak,
ये
she's the
टेक मी टू
last
चर्च
one
सॉन्ग है
I
ना, उसका
please.
वही है लिरिक्स।
Every Sunday's getting more bleak. The fresh
और
boys
ये
in
लिया मैंने।
the street. The boys
आवाज क्या है? थैंक मैंने देखे भी नहीं है स्ट्रीम ऑप्शन के पता नहीं।
हाँ बोल।
पता नहीं।
ओ परफेक्ट सिंक हुआ है हमारा। ओ परफेक्ट सिंक ही होता है क्या सबके?
हाँ
काट रहे जी यार, वो मेहनत करनी पड़ती थी, मजा आता था।
वो एक जना जो कर रहा होता है ना, तो उसी से वो लिंक कर देते हैं।
पहले कितना
लगा एफर्ट कर रहे हैं उसके बाद
1 2 3 4
ये जरा डीएमआर कर रहा है।
इतनी बुरी।
पोस्ट है आई थिंक
अरे इतना धीरे होता है ये चीज। मेरा काउंटर में जमीन पे उसका
नहीं है ऐसा कुछ उससे कोई फर्क नहीं
चल मार। आ जाओ।
हाँ
मेरे सामने 2 बंदे
आ गया
वो लूट रहे हैं वहाँ पे। टावर में गए एक। चोट यार। चोट यार।
और है ना स्लो
No man.
एक और एक और एक और ये मिनीगन बहुत लड़ रहा है
पहले वाले का टीममेट है अब।
ये वो है नीड लॉन्चर वो शॉकवेव
पता नहीं बुक नहीं है। ये गोल्डन वाले आसपास हम मर गए।
एक सेकंड शील्ड अप करो
यार बता रहा हूँ नॉर्थ वेस्ट में गोल्डन वाले लोग हैं।
यस सर
और इन दिख रही है। I saw one. Saw two. Reboot one. अरे भैंचो इतना छोटे ज़ूम में गायब? गोल्डन वाली टीम थी गायब हो गए इसके पीछे।
ये पीछे से
बॉट लग रहा है कोई तो। चलने पे
और के काम
इधर है। Oops. जो ओपन में आ गया अब तो मार ले गोली। मारे 2 लोग हैं। अरे वही सब ऊपर हो।
भाई मैं मार तो रहा था
एक भी नॉक नहीं होता। सारा डैमेज तो मैं नहीं खाया उनके सामने देखे।
नहीं मेरे में भी नहीं वो पिस्टल वाली शॉटगन ट्राई करी तुमने? पिस्टल वाली शॉटगन ट्राई करी? उससे रेडियस मतलब काफ़ी लंबा डैमेज होगा, रैपिड फायर भी है और डैमेज भी अच्छा है। उसी कैटेगरी पिस्टल में है बट वो है शॉटगन। इधर भी है।
शाइनी शाइनी क्या है? जुगाड़ मुरवाना आते हो? चल जाने मारना उनको।
फील्ड नहीं है
फिर बात मार के
चल
आइटम ड्रॉप किया।
Innovation.
एक बंदे को क्रैक किया था बट वो हिल गया। मेरे पे दो लोग हैं शायद। आ रहे हैं मेरे ऊपर खड़ा है। अंधी गांड है वो साला।
बकते हो
Yo, what's up?
पता
कैसा है शिवा?
किधर गया? दूसरे पर। Oh, hello यश।
यश नहीं है।
अरे
यस।
यूजुअली अरे दूसरा एक यश है।
मैं हूँ
हाँ।
यश।
वो ये तू नहीं, दूसरा भी एक यश है, रस्ट वाला वो आता है।
मेरे सर्वर में
है हम
आजा इधर लॉन्च पैड है।
अपना कॉलेज वाला यश भी वॉरफ्रेम खेल रहा है आजकल। यस MR10 पहुंच गया वो, ही ऑन द ग्राइंड ब्रो। मुझसे ज्यादा खेलता है वो। ओ बाय द वे, अब तूने सोलफ्रेम देखा क्या? व्हाट? मैं तो खेलता हूँ रोज ब्रो, मैं प्री अल्फा खेल रहा हूँ।
ओए इधर है।
क्या फोर्टनाइट खेल रहे हो?
लेट्स गो।
अबे बेकार है वे रॉकेट लॉन्चर ही।
क्यों?
रुक जा, दूर थोड़ा दूर रहना, पास में था। रुक रुक, अरे इसके रिवाइव में लोचा है।
डेफिनेटली लोचा है।
सही में भाई, मैं रिवाइव वाला का बटन दबा रहा हूँ, पिक कर लेता है।
भाई मैं मर जाऊंगा।
अरे तो मैं क्या करूँ, रिवाइव ही नहीं।
दबा के रखता हूँ बटन।
अरे
एक
दवा,
नहीं होता।
अरे दवा ही तो रहा हूँ यार, वो बार बार पिक कर ले रहा है, मैं क्या करूँ। 3 बार वो बटन रीसेट कर चुका हूँ।
मैं ऑल्ट एफर मारने वाला अगर तुमने रिवाइव नहीं
भाई
किया।
मैं, मेरी गलती नहीं है, मैं क्या वो, मैं बोल तो रहा हूँ भाई, मैं ई दबा रहा हूँ, एफ दबा।
उठा के फेंका है।
अरे यार
क्या मोमेंट पिक किया है मैंने आने के लिए ब्रो।
क्या हुआ? मैंने देखा।
रुक जा यार, मैं भाई उसको रिवाइव करने के लिए ई प्रेस कर रहा हूँ, वो बार बार पिक कर ले रहा है उसको।
इसने मेरे को 4 बार उठा के फेंका है, पता है दूर।
हाँ भाई मेरी
और ज्यादा ब्रो।
मेरी गलती है भाई इसकी ब्रो।
मैं इंस्टॉल कर रहा हूँ वॉरफ्रेम।
ऐसे को तो मूवमेंट नहीं जमता था ना उसका।
जमा लेंगे, ये चुतिया अब नहीं जमेगा मेरे को।
ब्रो वॉरफ्रेम में भर भर के कंटेंट आ गया है ब्रो।
है ना मेरे पास, ये बंदा है ना अपना, वो मुझे करा देगा
ना वो
सारा।
पैरासाइट वेपन्स आए थे तब तक था उसका।
भाई मैं तेरे को रिबूट कर
पैरासाइट
रहा हूँ।
फोड़ा। हाँ तो वो ही है लेटेस्ट प्रीटी मच। हाँ
वही है ना, एक नहीं हुआ।
और एक्सिया है। मैं खुद अभी 3-4 साल बाद आया हूँ गेम पे।
सो क्यूट।
बट टू बी फेयर, मैंने यश के साथ अब तक एक भी बार खेला नहीं है, मैंने बस उसको वॉरफ्रेम स्लॉट्स गिफ्ट कर दिए थे।
रुक मैं उसका की
तुम्हारे साथ नहीं रहे, हमारा कॉमन म्यूचुअल फ्रेंड जो यश है
की
दूसरा।
वाइन दोबारा उसकी। यार क्या
की पॉइंट को ब्लेम मत करो, स्किल को ब्लेम करो।
अच्छा अब बता, ई प्रेस रिवाइव करने के लिए उस पर लिख क्या रहा है, प्रेस ई। अब मैं ई प्रेस कर रहा हूँ तो तेरे को पिक कर ले रहा है, तो उसमें मेरी क्या गलती है, जबकि पिकअप का बटन एफ है।
तूने बिगाड़े अपने की पॉइंट्स।
भाई कीबाइंड पिकअप एफ पे ही डिफॉल्ट सेट है, मैंने उसमें कुछ नहीं करा है।
कीबोर्ड का गड़बड़ है, कीबाइंड का नहीं, कीबोर्ड का।
बोला ना कीबोर्ड का गड़बड़ नहीं है।
तो तुम नया कीबाइंड सेट करो ना अलग।
भाई 3 कर चुका भाई यार, क्या
ना आई डू नॉट एक्सेप्ट, आई नो यू डिड।
हाँ ठीक है भाई, देख ले अब तेरे को क्या करना है। मैं कुछ नहीं बोल सकता उसमें।
अगर कीबोर्ड का दिक्कत है तो तुम माउस पे करो उसको।
व्हाटएवर दिस दैट वाज, इट वाज नाइस।
हो गया ना, सीधा हो गया ना भाई, छोड़ना।
परेशान कर रहा हूं, करने दे, तेरे क्या जाता है।
ओ देखो अभी उसका टोन अभी थोड़ा फ्रस्ट्रेशन वाला आना चालू हो गया। 1 सेकंड में ही टेक्सचर बताने में टाइम लगेगा उसको।
सी मेरा वही है कि ऑल्ट एफर दबा के कुछ कर लो। अब मेरे को थोड़ी ना खेलना था ये गेम।
गेम उठा लेना।
डीएम गोल्डन
ये क्या हो गया है? फोर्टनाइट में इतना स्लो पेस पहली बार देख रहा हूँ मैं।
फोर्टनाइट ऐसे स्लो पेस था, एपेक्स ही फास्ट पेस है। फोर्टनाइट इतना
क्या बात कर रहे हो भाई? फोर्टनाइट में एक दूसरे को देखते ही पूरा पूरा मैप बिल्ड होना शुरू हो जाता है।
नहीं, वो
नहीं,
नहीं
नो
होता
बिल्ड
ना,
जोन है ना।
नो बिल्ड है
नो
ना इसके लिए।
हाँ, नो बिल्ड मोड है।
हमारे वो दिन गए जहाँ पे हम लोग भी फोर्ट ऐसे एक साइड में खड़ा करते थे। एंड जो मेन रैंड गेम प्ले था, इट हैज बिकम लाइक तुम केव बनाओ बस। तुम अपनी केव में जिंदा रहो एंड ट्राई करो दूसरों के केव में घुस के तुम चोरी कर पाओ उनको। इट हैज बिकम लाइक बुलशिट। बॉक्सिंग मैकेनिक बुलशिट।
सबके सब वो है तो बोलते हैं
एडिट मारो, शूट करो, री एडिट करो, वही है।
नहीं,
यप
सबके सब क्रिएटिव वॉरियर बन चुके हैं।
हाँ, सिर्फ क्रिएटिव में खेलते हैं।
हम एक्चुअल फोर्टनाइट प्लेयर्स थे जो एक्चुअल फोर्ट बना देते थे। कहाँ पे बेचो? Can I have some ammo? Thank you.
ले पाएगी एमओ चाहिए क्या?
अरे इतने को नहीं बोल रहा था मैं।
नहीं पर मेरे पास है अगर चाहिए।
नहीं चीज बोल रहा था मैं तेरे को। मैं शॉप वाले को बोल रहा था, उसके पास एक क्रेट था ammo का।
मेरे पास 4 स्प्लैश हैं, 5 मिनीज हैं।
But do you have life?
Nope. Nobody.
चलो वापस अपने बेस होना आएगा आउटपोस्ट पे यहाँ पे नहीं पे।
तो तूने सोल फ्रेम का गेम प्ले एक्चुअली देखा नहीं है ना? अब इसमें ज़्यादा कंटेंट नहीं है, 40 घंटे का ही है, बट इट इज़ बेसिकली सोल्स लाइक मैकेनिक्स। सोल फ्रेम
क्या है वो?
वॉरफ्रेम वालों की क्रिएटर्स ने नया गेम निकाला।
ओके।
इट इज़ अ बिट डिफरेंट, उतना ही ग्राइंडी है थोड़ा सा, बट इट इज़
ला ना, मेरे को भी एक्सेस ला। चेक करना एक्सेस।
एक्सेस के लिए अगर कभी मेरे को आता है कुछ पता चलता है तो आई।
नहीं, if you have access, usually you are able to share access as well to people.
हाँ, अगर कोड रहा तो।
कोड का नहीं होता, from this thing होता है ना इनका।
वहाँ पे आई थिंक कोई ना कोई वो कर रहा है।
So
प्री अल्फा का एक्सेस इतना शेयर नहीं करने देंगे लोग, वो स्ट्रीम देख के मिला था।
क्या स्टीम पे नहीं है क्या अभी तक?
नहीं, इट इज प्री अल्फा।
अल्फा भी नहीं है, प्री अल्फा है।
बेसिकली अभी बीटा रिलीज वगैरह कुछ आएगा तो फिर वो थोड़ा और वाइड ओपन करेंगे।
तूने मेडालियन नहीं उठाया?
फाइनली पर प्राइम जैसा
एनकेजी
कौन सा मेडल है?
आई मीन
ये मार्क कराना है ना?
मेरे पास ए है कुछ तो।
ओके,
How do I know what I have? I have no idea.
वो तेरे नाम के ऊपर वो हेल्प के ऊपर दिख रहा होगा ना, ये लिख के आ रहा है।
हाँ। वो आ रहा है। ठीक है।
नेड लॉन्च वो
चलिए।
शॉक लॉन्चर लेके बैठा हुआ है।
Aiming down the sight reduces recoil and spreading the movement speed. Okay. Oh fuck, ये है क्या? फिर मैं आ रहा हूँ। ये इतना जल्दी नहीं होगा मेरा।
ओह, तू भी आ रहा है वर्क में?
इंस्टॉल करूँगा अभी तो।
फिर मैं क्वेस्ट कराता हूँ। क्योंकि फिर मेरी एक ही क्वेस्ट बची है और उसके लिए मेरे को यूट्यूब वीडियो
लॉन्च
फॉलो
पैड है
करना है।
इतना कॉम्प्लेक्स है?
अरे नहीं यार, वो वेव राइडर
अरे वेव राइडर बहुत चूतिया क्वेस्ट है, इज्जत से चूतिया क्वेस्ट है।
उसमें जा जाके ढूंढना पड़ता है कि कहाँ
यार,
पे
टीम
मैं चीज़ पूरी कर
दो
पाऊंगा।
हैं, दो
माना?
देख लिया
मैं
उन्होंने।
किया ही नहीं है इसके लिए कंप्लीट
मारे?
मार ले।
रन की बात।
मेरा शॉट।
32 30. 21 right. No.
क्या अच्छा मैग्नेट
चलो पुश तुम्हारे हील्स लाओ कुछ हील नहीं है लेके चल निकल यहाँ से ये लोग आएंगे और लोग आवाज सुन के
अरे उधर बिग पॉट था मैंने माफ किया था इधर मेरे पे स्प्लैश है इधर
ठीक है
तेरे पीछे हूँ
हाँ रुक जा कुछ ना कुछ तो यहाँ भी मिलेगा ना ओके पढ़ता भी नहीं उठा लेता है
नेक्स्ट होम सर्कल टॉम नेक्स्ट होम सर्कल कहाँ बन रहा है वो दिख जाएगा
तो देख लेना
ये इधर है
मुझे कुछ करना है क्या
नहीं नहीं नहीं
हाँ तो कर
माफ कर
हाँ बता
दूर जाने दो फ्लैश मारूं तेरे को मिला कुछ
नहीं मिला
इधर आ जा
क्या
लॉन्च पैड है यहाँ पे लॉन्च पैड लेके चल
लोकेशन क्या है पास में ही जोन भागना चाहिए अपने इंस्टेड अपन रीलोड चेक कर ले सारा टू आई गेस
अरे वो मेडालियन वाले सबसे गंदे हैं यार
कोई बात नहीं टू है we know medallion location we just need to find the other alternate squad दुकान के पीछे से ना है तो अच्छा
वो मेडालियन वालों के पास क्या वो नेड लॉन्चर है मिथिक वाला और ये मिथिक वाली शॉटगन है दोनों बड़े गंदे हैं
कोई बात नहीं they are revealing the locations
दबा ऐसे कितनी टीम है सब टू हो गया
वो देख साला कितनी तेजी से देख मैप के कितना जंप कर रहा है
क्यों नहीं करेंगे ओके आलो पे सर्कल बना we go from side
मैंने वही तो मार्कर लगाया था वो नेक्स्ट और उसके बाद वाला सर्कल इधर है
ओके we go towards here गार्डन में टहलेंगे गार्डन में दिल गार्डन गार्डन हो गया अब है ओ लड़े मैडम गिरा उनका
वहाँ मेडालियन वाली टीम को मार दिया
नहीं एक को मारा है जल्दी आ What the
इधर नीचे से जा सकते हैं
यप स्लाइडिंग का बेनिफिट उठाते हुए 2v2
अपने ऊपर ही है वो
ठीक है फाइट ही लेना है अपने को ऑप्शन कुछ नहीं लेना दूसरा हम तोड़ सकते हैं
गन शॉट
सामने से जाएंगे अपने ये लोग। इधर है।
चलो
Left
अपन
में
अगले अगले जोन में अपन जा सकते हैं, चला जाओ।
टाइम पास आ चुका है, आई थिंक। होली शिट, जल्दी उठा मेरे को प्लीज। एंड लेट्स गो बिहाइंड दिस रॉक। वो रॉक ज्यादा ओपन में हो गया। लेफ्ट वाले रॉक पे, लेफ्ट वाले रॉक पीछे। एंड होपफुली रिवाइव कर सकता है तुम मेरे को, तो नहीं तो जी जी।
अरे यार,
नहीं, कीबाइंड कीबोर्ड का गड़बड़ नहीं है।
तो और
अब
क्या?
तो कीबोर्ड का गड़बड़ नहीं। अब तो कीबोर्ड तूने अभी तो बोला मैं ठीक करके आता हूँ, मैं ठीक किया।
अरे मैंने किया भाई, कीबाइंड रीसेट किया, पिकअप का मैंने कुछ और लगा दिया, रिवाइव का अलग है, जो कि आपस में एक साथ भी नहीं है।
हाँ तो ट्राई करना दूसरा वाला की, तो तूने किया है वाला की दबा ना।
ठीक।
की भी भूल गया, मर गया मैं। उठा।
यार मैं ना सही हूँ।
यस।
ओ भाई, बहुत ही फ्रस्ट्रेटिंग था।
है क्या?
जीत गए ना। हो
सही।
गया, मैंने अनइंस्टॉल मार दिया।
ठीक है भाई।
क्या बोले?
अनइंस्टॉल मार दिया, हो गया मेरा।
राइट।
क्या?
चलो उठना, क्यों नहीं उठ रहा? उठना उठना, ऐसा करेगा। उठना 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 उठना, चल यहाँ से। क्या कर रहा है? चलना। चलो तू, मैं जा रहा हूँ। क्यों मारूं मैं?
Apartment in the same area. I'm going to have to change names so I don't get into any legal trouble or upset surviving family. Also, I don't want to rustle any feathers with colleagues. The law enforcement community is very tight-knit, and egos bruise like bananas. Some of you will probably deduce what county I'm talking about from the few clues that I give you anyways. But I gotta change up the story enough for plausible deniability. You know the drill. Standard creepypasta stuff. My county was as big as Dallas or Austin County, but only has a population of 14,000 people in it. A lot of places you can only travel on foot. It's as bayou as it can get and still be in Texas. Creeks and rivers run through it like veins, proning the area to flash floods. The most common sight is tightly packed forest pushed up against blacktop roads. The most common way to die is falling asleep at the wheel or being ambushed by suicidal deer. Since there's not a lot of people, and these people are poor, it means deputies are paid crap. Not that I was only in it for the pay. I loved being a cop. I pledged to be one of the good ones that stuck to his ideals and didn't become cynical. Well, I stuck to my ideals, but I became more cynical each passing day. What's worse than the pay is the safety concerns. There are only 2 deputies out on a given night, one for the south end and one for the north. This means your only backup is usually 20 to 40 minutes away from you. And if your partner is also handling an emergency, well, then you're out of luck. This made the area seem like one of the last remaining bits of the Wild West. You really had to keep your wits sharp and watch your six when all alone in the woods. As romantic as the idea was of being like Walker, Texas Ranger, it almost got me killed. It was the perfect storm of circumstances. My county had suffered severe flooding the week before this story had happened. The water was going down in most parts, but some places were still flooded. Another great thing was our radios had been down all day. Someone was coming to fix them in the morning, and the rain began pouring again. The call came in around midnight about a man beating on a woman's door. The man was demanding to be let in out of the rain. The woman said that she was alone with her baby and needed a cop fast. I was in the dispatch located in the jail side of the sheriff's department when the call came in. My dispatcher, who was like a mother hen, gave me a look. I got a live one look. Her eyebrows raised as she snapped at me to get my attention. Her phone tucked to her ear while her other hand typed furiously. I listened to her repeat information out loud for me as I scribbled down the caller's address in my notepad. It was in the flash flood zone. It was passable, but the continuing storm was changing this quick. Another hour of hard rain would cut it off from the rest of the world. My dispatcher swiveled in her chair to look right at me, her face serious. Call me on your phone when you get close. The radios are still down, so I'll call you every 10 minutes for a security check. Got it, I said, as I spun around to hurry to my patrol car. I let the South End deputy know what you got in case he needs to get to you. She quipped as the heavy door to the jail slammed behind me. I appreciated the gesture from her, but having backup almost an hour away didn't mean much if things popped off. Backup could be coming from the moon for all the difference it made. I squeezed myself into the crowded front seat of my patrol vehicle. I hadn't even entered the address into my onboard GPS when my phone had started ringing. It was dispatch. What you got? I asked. There was an unusual pause before she spoke. I could hear the concern in her voice. Hey, just learned this. Our caller said that it may be Ezekiel Burrows out there. I paused before turning the key in the ignition. This was not good. I had dealt with Zeke before. It was back when I was a rookie. I'll have to put this story on hold to fill you in with a flashback episode first. I had been working for about 2 weeks at the time. I was still riding shotgun with my FTO. An anonymous caller rang the sheriff's department complaining that Zeke and his older brother were driving around pointing guns at people and firing into the air. And my FTO had been a stereotype of an old county cop who was about to retire. He was laid back and calmly gave instructions between drags of a cigarette. He wore a bushy white walrus mustache and cowboy hat that fitted him perfectly. When the call came across the car radio, his demeanor flipped like a switch. He sat forward and flicked his cigarette out the window. His face darkened. All right, deputy, this could get dangerous. Stay alert, stay close, and do everything that I tell you. We were burning towards the call pretty fast when he offered this additional piece of information. I know these 2 brothers. They've been known to fight with police. Don't be afraid to go hands-on if you need to, he said with his slow demeanor. And my body dumped a ton of adrenaline for a fight-or-flight response as I felt my stomach turn. I was glad that my FTO was so calm for me. In those days, I used to be ashamed of the butterflies in my stomach. I thought it meant that I was weak or a coward. Now I realize it's my body's way of protecting itself, and I needed to embrace the feeling. We found the brothers slow rolling around in a Hutter Green Dodge Neon. It was missing a driver's side mirror and had a giant hole where a red brake light should be. It was great when they made our job easy. We initiated a felony takedown. That's pretty much when you point your weapon at the suspect vehicle while standing behind your open car door. You give loud verbal commands like, "Driver, step out of the vehicle slowly." Anyway, we had both of them pulled out and detained in handcuffs. Nothing of note really happened except for there being 2 shotguns and 3 rifles in the back seat. Ammo and shell casings everywhere. It's not illegal in the state of Texas, but highly suspicious. The original caller wanted to remain anonymous, so we had nothing to prove that they were firing from the vehicle. My FTO dealt with Zeke's older brother while I talked with Zeke. I can't remember the brother's name. We will just call him Turd for now. My FTO had our dispatch run both of their names to see if they had any active warrants. So we got some tense and awkward minutes with the brothers while they waited to see if they were going to jail or not. The Turd ran at the mouth for the duration of the stop, called us every racist and vulgar thing in his extensive vocabulary of no-no words. And me, being a rookie, got a little flustered at some of the things he had allegedly done to my mother, so I turned my attention to Zeke. Zeke stood there downcast and drenched in sweat. It was only 80 degrees, but he looked like he was about to suffer a heat stroke. His whole body began to tremble slightly and sway back and forth. "You okay, Zeke?" I asked as I stepped closer to him. I thought that I might have had to catch him if he passed out on me. You see, Zeke smelled like hot garbage, and it was pretty overpowering. A mixture of sweat and butt. I didn't want to touch him, but he was cuffed behind his back. I couldn't let him tip over with nothing but his head to break the fall. Lucky for me, Zeke straightened up when I reached for him. His eyes bulged as he looked right at me, his teeth bared in a grimace. "Is this one gonna kill me, Jesus?" he whispered in a raspy voice, his vacant eyes locked with mine. "Oh no, Zeke, you're just being detained while we check if it's good to let you and your brother go," I said while trying to hide how creeped out I was. Zeke paused and tilted his head to the side slightly. A smirk touched the edge of his mouth as he nodded like he was in agreement with something. The next thing that he said was something really strange. It's been a while since that day, so my memory is foggy, but I remember it being something like, "I'm supposed to tell you to remember my face during the massacre." "What?" I said as I turned to face him squarely. His brother must have heard the change in my tone of voice. He leaned over to yell past my FTO. "Hey, keep your mouth shut, Zeke. Let me handle these pigs." Zeke considered his brother calmly and replied, "You will be alone when you die, brother." Turd's eyes widened and I saw pure fear flash across his face. He scoffed and tried to play it off by laughing, but I could see through his bravado. His brother had scared him. Long story short, both brothers came back clear of warrants. The original 911 caller still wanted to remain anonymous, and this meant that we had no witness to any alleged illegal activity. With nothing to hold them for, we let them loose. But I do remember one more creepy thing that Zeke said. When they were uncuffed, the two walked back to their car. Turd went for the driver's seat and Zeke went to sit in the seat behind him. "What, I'm your chauffeur now?" Turd asked angrily. Zeke was staring at something in the passenger seat while shaking his head slowly. "No," Zeke replied coolly. "He's already sitting there. I'm not gonna make him mad. He's already been staring at you all day." And Turd said something muffled to Zeke and got into the driver's seat. As they drove away, I could see Zeke sitting in the back, half turned and pointing at something beside his brother in the passenger seat. And before they had pulled out of earshot, I could hear Turd begin to scream profanities at his brother. So, that's the previously on the TV show of my life. That was my first run-in with Zeke, and now it seemed that I was racing to him again years later. Zeke's little origin story always sat different with me. I never encountered him in person after that initial contact, but word of his exploits would always reach me. An elderly woman had her door kicked in by the two brothers. She was beaten and robbed. Didn't call the cops until a week later because her grandson made her. She was too terrified to give a witness statement, but the grandson told me the entire street knew that it was Zeke and Turd. An outdoor birthday party canceled when Zeke popped up out of the woods and started firing his shotgun in the air. I spent the rest of the night trying to reel in trigger-happy relatives looking for Zeke in the woods. A caller that we 90% knew was Zeke kept calling dispatch and threatening to kill the sheriff on recorded lines. He was mad that his brother was arrested. Problem was, Turd was arrested by a neighboring county, not us. It was evident that Zeke was sliding further and farther to the dark side. He was the Riddler to my Batman. I could never catch up with them, he just left problems for me to deal with. But now maybe I had him, and I could physically put cuffs on him. My GPS said that I was 10 minutes out from the caller's house. It was going to be a little bit longer because of the downpour. Visibility was low and I could feel my ride trying to hydroplane a few times. When I was about 2 minutes out, the road before me just seemed to disappear. The white lines had just vanished as water flooded the road. Turning on my takedown lights didn't reveal where the high water ended, so I stepped out of my car to take a better look. In the darkness, all I could hear was the sporadic thumping of droplets hitting my raincoat, and the mechanical back and forth of my wipers in overdrive. Before me was a flat plain of water rippling from millions of raindrops. Every few seconds the area would illuminate with lightning, showing me the deep water continued around the bend in the road. My mind went back to the PS1 days of Silent Hill. First thing I did as a terrified 5th grader was try to leave the town, only to find an endless drop-off into the dense fog. I had the similar feeling of dread now, but this time it was an impromptu lake and not a cliff, and I was running towards the danger, not away from it. I was weighing my options and considering letting dispatch know that it was impassable. I was in a Charger, not a Tahoe. Maybe Zeke found somewhere else to stay dry. I mean, he hasn't broken any laws yet. My phone began to ring. It was dispatch. Before I could even say hello, I was met with,
"You there yet, deputy?"
"I'm around the corner, there's."
"He's back."
My dispatcher half shouted.
"She's saying that he's kicking the door and beating on windows. I can hear him threatening to hurt her in the background."
At this moment, only one course of action was clear. I guess I'd be swimming if I had to. I slowly but steadily submerged my vehicle into the dark waters. I was praying that it wouldn't drown out as the waters rose to about 2 feet high around me. Water began seeping in from the bottoms of the doors as I made the bend in the road. I could see land before me as I began to get more traction and pull out of the water. I gassed my vehicle to give it one last lurch to exit the water and spin out into the muddy road. I hit the brakes to get a quick layout of my surroundings. The red stop sign of a 4-way intersection reflected back at me. I was now in a small residential community. My GPS told me that the caller's house was across the intersection and 3 houses down on the left. It was hard to see it through the downpour, but I could see the road disappeared under the water again. I got out and began to walk. I wasn't going to risk getting my car stuck and trapped in the driveway. As I sloshed forward, tension began to build in the back of my neck. Silent lightning would periodically illuminate me in a sea of ripples. A cold feeling surrounded my thoughts. A black hole opened in my stomach, sucking all confidence from me. This was new. I had been scared before, but fight or flight always set in with a burst of nervous energy. But this was surreal. I felt like I was dreaming. I felt dread. I felt alone. I was in water up to my knees when I reached the yard. I finally got some higher ground the closer that I came to the front door. I squished around to my left and my right, checking the sides of the house. The house was a double-sized trailer elevated 3 feet off the ground on stilts. I had to walk up the steep stairs to knock on the door. "Sheriff's Department," I yelled over the rain. I jumped back down with a splash of the narrow steps and I scanned the darkness. I heard rumbling at the door as it opened a couple of inches. I could see a feminine face peeking out at me. Can I see a badge or something? Came a fearful voice. I cocked my head at this before I realized that I was completely covered in my yellow Wyatt Arab raincoat. I unbuttoned my trench coat and showed my flashlight on my badge and duty belt. "He was here just now," she said nervously. Her eyes darted back and forth, scanning the darkness. I could hear the frantic cries of her child from deeper in the house. "Lock the door, but stay by it for me. I'll check around back. So don't worry if you hear me making noise back there." I waited until I heard her lock the door before pulling out my gun and circling around to the left. I circled around the entire house slowly, making the corners with a deliberate slowness. My small but powerful flashlight held at the center of my chest with my gun at low ready. The entire perimeter of the house checked clear. My head was on a swivel, checking the thick forest pushing in from the darkness. I even checked her small car, pulled on the doors to see if they were left unlocked. There was nothing suspicious. He was gone. But I felt eyes on me. The cold dread sat heavy on my stomach, making me slightly nauseous. I could feel the nervous tingle at the base of my skull, making me want to turn my head frequently. And then the obvious realization hit me, causing an extra punch to the gut. He was under the house. It was 3 feet off the ground. Me being an idiot had just been walking around him. I was standing with my back a foot away from the house. I immediately dropped to one knee with a splash and twist to aim my weapon and light under the house, my mind half expecting the jump scare from Zeke, akin to the scene where they first show the xenomorph in the vents on Alien. My fingers slowly loosens off the trigger as I saw nothing but interlocking planks of wood, cobwebs, and more darkness. I couldn't see fully under the house because it had been used to store old junk like a lawnmower, sandbags, and old bicycles. I stared intently for a while, trying to make out a human form. Every time I moved, the blinding beam of light had caused dark shadows to dance underneath, mimicking movement. I wasn't satisfied that he wasn't under there, but I couldn't see a thing. I backed away from the house and began to think. He was close by and he was probably watching me. I comforted myself with the realization that he was scared of me, and I had a captive audience. He was either under the house or waiting in the forest, trying not to make a sound by running. "Zeke," I projected my voice with as much authority as I could. "This is the sheriff department. We know it's you out there." I did a 360 scan around me with my flashlight as I slowly continued. "You haven't broken any laws yet. Go home now and that can be the end of it. If I have to come back, you are definitely going to jail, I promise you that." As I finished my speech, I let the silence hang in the air for a dramatic effect. Thunder rolled in the distance to punctuate my seriousness. Feeling confident in my ultimatum, I sloshed my way back to my patrol car, but don't get me twisted, dear listener. I'm not inept or cowardly. I had a plan and leaving was a ruse. When I got to my car, I called dispatch to tell her the plan. I told her to let our caller know that I was going to drive back to the stop sign down the road and dark out to wait for Zeke to return. Soon I was back in my car with all the lights out, staring down the dark road towards the house. As I sat in the darkness listening to the chaotic storm envelop me, I checked my phone. Only 10 minutes had passed when I swear it had been an eternity. The strange dreamlike feeling flooded over me again. I had a quick thought telling me that I had never gone to the house in the first place. I had been just sitting here imagining the whole series of events that had just happened. Unsure, I patted my ankles to see if they were still wet. They weren't. I never trudged in the water to check on the scared mother, but I had remembered doing it. I don't know, things are so foggy. I had the sudden urge to cry and I didn't know why. I just felt so scared, so alone. Nothing made sense. I fought back a sob. A harsh voice spoke to me, cutting through my confusion like a poison knife through my brain. It said that I should just end it. I should just use the tool holstered on my hip. I put my head against the coolness of my window, Hot tears ran down my face as my hand fumbled with the retention locks on my holster. The coolness of the window was my only relief before the end. Good thing it was snowing. The snow always made me sad as it formed a white coat of ice on my windows. Wait a minute, snow? In Texas? I jolted with a gasp in my seat as if waking from a dream. Maybe I was a micro-dream. I had had a couple of those in Marine boot camp due to sleep deprivation. But why had it happened now? I shook my head vigorously to get my bearing back. The dark thoughts fled from me. I realized the power on the street must have gone out while I was in my reverie, because no light was coming from any of the houses. Visibility was zero and the storm was at a deafening cacophony by now. Alone with just my thoughts in the darkness, I doubted my plan. I had had enough of my mind playing tricks on me, and I wondered how long I should sit here like a creeper until I had to go back to regular patrol. My phone lit up and I jumped to answer it before it could even ring. I immediately recognized my dispatcher's voice, but it sounded too far away.
He's back. Right now, he...
Her voice cut out as the call dropped and it chimed in my ear. Yeah, sometimes these cell towers out here were spotty, especially during storms. Now I had a useless phone that I couldn't call backup with. My only hope was my dispatcher would get my partner rolling my way. He was around 30 minutes to 1 hour away, remember? As I slammed my door behind me and began slogging through the rain, I thought to myself, on nights like this, I knew the future. I could just imagine the darkest timeline of events into what happened. The thought of my cell phone crapping out had been a whisper in my mind since the night began. I didn't bring it to the forefront of my thoughts in hope that it wouldn't manifest, but it came true along with all the other bad vibes of the night. I prayed and no more latent fears came to fruition, especially the deepest fear that we all suppress every time we wear a badge. I was splashing through the mini ocean leading up the front porch when I heard the screaming of the child. Not the normal screaming of a fussy infant, but a sharp, raspy scream, as if the child's throat was hurting from the exertion. Out came my gun again as I quickly ran towards these steep stairs. I did a quick duck under to scan the house with my light before I positioned myself beside the narrow stairs. I didn't go up them due to hearing about cops being shot off porches through closed doors as soon as they had announced themselves. I banged down the lower part of the door with a fist and denounced myself. I waited a beat for an answer or a gunshot. None came though, and I weighed my options. I didn't have consent or a search warrant, but what I did have was a good old exigent circumstance. Exigent circumstance is what firefighters use to kick your door in when they smell smoke. As long as I believe danger is on the other side of the door, I can ram it in. The baby's screams became choking coughs and I heard something thump loudly inside. I hopped up the steps and prepared to launch my shoulder into the door. A tiny voice in my head urged me to see if the door was unlocked. It should still be locked from last time, but I tried it anyways. It opened a crack and I was hit with an awful stench. The closest thing that I can compare it to is somebody with a severe sinus infection waking up with morning breath, having eaten rotten eggs and they blew in your face. I pulled my head back to see a bulging eye staring at me from the top corner of the door, but this eye reflected like a cat's or a raccoon. It stared down at me with a dotted purple. In the split second before I kicked the door open, I could see the eye glint purple and retreat. I could hear the growl of a dog as the door swung open to the darkness within. My flashlight and my weapon swung around frantically, searching for a dog or a tall intruder with purple eyes. I saw nothing but a small living room. A TV to my right, a couch to my left. Counter in front of me separating the living room from the kitchen. I could hear the child screaming and coughing from the hallway to my left. I took a couple of tentative steps towards the cries when a figure rushed out of the hallway towards me. I let out a yell and leveled my Glock to fire. I thank God that I froze for an instant instead of shooting reflexively. In the split second that followed, I saw the mother with her head tilted sideways and her eyes rolled back. Her arms were trailing limply behind her as she fell. I sidestepped out of her way and she crumpled to the floor beside me with a thud. Hindsight 2020, maybe I should have caught her. Or maybe part of me knew that she had been thrown, so I kept my weapon aimed down the hallway. Or that's what I tell myself anyways. The hallway was only 6 feet long, a bedroom to the right and left with a bathroom in the middle. I had been in countless trailers with this layout. The bathroom door was closed, so whoever threw her could be to the right or to the left taking cover. I could see that both of the doors were open. I spared a glance down at the woman and she was on her side facing me. Young and attractive, she was only in a light shirt and underwear. Her eyes were open and she was breathing in quick and short bursts. Her eyes had a trance-like stare and I could see her skin glistened with a layer of sweat. I couldn't see blood or physical injuries on her, but she reminded me of a fish taken out of water, slowly dying. When I returned my gaze to the hallway, my brain couldn't make sense of what I was seeing. It appeared the hallway had gotten longer. Where my flashlight had once illuminated the bathroom door, now there was only pitch blackness. I moved my flashlight back and forth to reveal the darkness was a fixed object, like a cloud at the lip of the doorway. Even as I squinted and tried to grasp what I was seeing, the darkness had seemed to grow closer. It leaked out like a fog into the living room. The door frame faded to blackness and then the walls around it, and then parts of the couch beside it. The best way that I can explain is that it looked like the world in front of me was disappearing, being swallowed up by the void. The dark reached across the room to flood after me. I looked down to see the world drop off into nothingness about a foot away from me. The bare legs of the woman laying beside me had already been consumed by it. I tried in vain to wave the darkness away with my light, but to no avail. I backed into the TV and knocked it over. The familiar panic began to boil over within me as the dark whispers tore through my mind again. It was the same despair that I had felt in the care. I wasn't afraid of dying on the job, but this wasn't different. What was this darkness? What unimaginable terror waited for me in the approaching void? Would it take me to hell? If I died here, would God even see me? The darkness was right out of arm's reach when the glow of my flashlight was snuffed out and I was plunged into absolute darkness. My last light of hope disappearing caused a primal scream to build up in my throat. One last terrified plea before the madness overtook me. Oh God, oh Jesus. I blinked rapidly as my flashlight sprung back to life, illuminating the room around me. The unnatural darkness had retreated. I blinked repeatedly as the horrid thoughts flew from me, leaving me shaking and whimpering. I fought the urge to run out of the door and forget stupid ideas like honor and duty. As I supported myself against the TV leaning against the wall, I began to catch my breath. I did a couple rounds of combat breathing to lower my racing heart. I also let out a curse word every other exhale. I had a job to do and I knew that I had to replace paralyzing fear with something else. Life had taught me anger could override fear and push you past exhaustion in a pinch. I also steadied myself with a mental checklist. I would finish this call, I would find the baby, call an ambulance for the mom and stop Seek, or whatever it was out here. And then I could go 10-8 and drink coffee at the office and everything would be like normal. I knelt down to check on the mother. She wouldn't respond to anything that I asked her. Her pupils were as big as saucers and showed no reaction to my light. A brief pat-down revealed no apparent injuries. But then I heard it again, the soft cry of an infant. But it wasn't coming from the hallway, it sounded closer. I shot up and immediately saw a figure to the right of my periphery. I twirled to highlight a dark figure of a person standing in the kitchen. The figure's back was turned to me with shoulders hunched. It wore a ratty black raincoat, torn and frayed. "Let me see your hands," I yelled. The figure didn't budge. I could hear him mumbling as he bobbed his shoulder. "Hey, listen to me. I swear to God I'll shoot you. Hands up and turn around slowly." I could hear him start softly cooing. But my hands are full, Deputy, he croaked as he slowly turned around. It was Zeke, and he was cradling the baby in his arms. My whole body tensed up at this sight. The child couldn't have been more than a year old. I could see the child moving its arms and wriggling about. Thank God for that. But Zeke's grip was firmly around the base of its skull, his disgusting hand palming its delicate head like he was holding a baseball, the dirty nail of his pointer finger gently tapping the child's nose. I mentally weighed my options. Seeing Zeke holding the child reminded me of how terrified I felt when I first held my newborn nephew. He was so fragile, I thought that I could crush him on accident. I knew Zeke was playing upon that fear to keep me at bay. I could shoot him in the face. It wouldn't be the hardest shot to make. He was not but 7 feet from me, but he would drop the baby. As if sensing my thoughts, Zeke let go of the child's head and it dangled upside down by the leg. Now the child commenced the screaming as it swung back and forth like a pendulum. Zeke outstretched his arm, presenting the baby to me, purposefully holding the baby directly in front of the muzzle of my gun. Take the shot, kill the bad guy, save the family, Zeke hissed. It's what you trained for all these years, he continued as he took a step towards me, shortening the distance to about 4 feet. I could see the tears pouring out of the child's chubby face, running down its forehead to sprinkle to the floor. I pulled my gun away from the child and held it close to my chest, terrified to have something so dangerous so close to something so precious. I took a half step back when I realized that I was losing my one advantage. Zeke thought that I had tunnel vision on shooting him. He expected me to step back and keep my distance like cops were trained to do, but I always liked a good fight. I quickly came up with a plan to holster my weapon while rushing him. I would grab the baby with my offhand while giving him a low kick right to the knee. I would catch him off guard by springing my attack in the middle of telling him something that everybody knew. Zeke, listen to me, you have the right to remain silent. My gun started to lower to my holster, my offhand pointing the light in his eyes. Anything you say can be used against you. A grin began to widen on Zeke's face. If you cannot afford a... I tensed to attack. Zeke whipped the baby into the air. Time slowed around me as I saw the child arch upwards to almost hit the ceiling. I must have instinctively dropped my weapon in light as my arms reached to catch the child as it descended. My hands searched the darkness where my brain predicted the falling child should be. I felt its soft body and eagerly pulled the child to my chest. The instant that my brain confirmed that I had secured the infant, my eyesight exploded with stars as my head rocked back. While reeling backwards, another blow hit the side of my right knee. I buckled and fell to my back, the gear in my duty belt jamming painfully into me. The entire time my arms desperately wrapped around the screaming child. I immediately began frantically searching the ground around me with my right hand. I couldn't let Zeke get my weapon. I began to sit up and roll to my side in a desperate attempt to shield the baby. I received a crushing knee to the belly as Zeke landed on me with all his weight. I let out a grunt of pain and wrapped the child tighter to my chest. He straddled me and pulled himself closer by the collar of my overvest. I could smell his telltale stench cascading off me, his enlarged eyes staring into mine. I realized with horror that Zeke had no intention of going for my gun. With a crazed smile on his face, he embraced me in a hug and began to squeeze. He was going to squeeze me to squeeze the life out of the baby. I had to recall my surging right hand to push back against Zeke. We struggled like that for what seemed like an eternity. He was mounted on top of me, giving me a bear hug, and I desperately tried pushing him away with my right hand while shielding the baby with my left. I knew the amount of force that he was putting on me was unnatural. He was wiry and about 6 inches shorter than me. I had at least 40 pounds on the guy and I was in decent shape. But I felt my back crack as I gasped as my muscles were quickly pushed to the point of muscle failure. The poor child began to wheeze as our bodies sandwiched him. I was getting desperate and my mind brought up a memory that I had tucked away for a rainy day, hoping that I never had to use it. I remembered a salty former Devil Dog SWAT instructor teaching us room clearing tactics in the academy. It was the end of the day and he began to share war stories about his time in the Corps. Most people don't know the quickest way to kill somebody is putting your thumb right through the bad guy's eye socket. He had told us with a wicked smile, mimicking the action by thrusting his gnarled thumb with a quick jab, straight into the brain. He finished as he twisted his thumb and made a squish sound with his mouth. Yeah, my body cringed, and just like yours did as I heard this. He must have seen the group of us cadets physically withdraw and continued. The trick is getting your brain to override your sense of basic human decency and kill another human in this horrific way. Your mind will fight you on it. It's not natural to want to do this to your fellow man. Even now that you know it, you won't be able to do it when if the time comes. I was used to the mind games and hazing from alpha military types, trying to scare us into quitting. I thought on what he said that day, unsure if I could kill or maim someone in such a horrible way. I would have to exhaust all other options. But now as I lay on my back, my body failing and a child being crushed between us, I had to dig deep to survive. Zeke blinked for the first time during this whole confrontation. A look of realization had passed over him. He grinned even wider and began to chuckle. He released me from his hug and quickly grabbed my head with both hands, his thumbs moving from my eyes. I closed my eyes as I felt his dirty thumbnails scrape across my eyelids. Panic leapt inside me as I realized what he was doing. Even though my eyes were closed, I had a mental picture where he was. My right hand struck out and my thumb pierced through something smooth and soft. Warm liquid immediately engulfed my hand and splashed across my face. I didn't realize I was screaming until the copper-tasting liquid had poured into my mouth. I could taste what it was and I knew what I had done, but I had to open my eyes to see. Zeke's grip had slackened enough to open my eyes to peek at the damage. Sure enough, my thumb was deeply embedded into Zeke's left eye socket. He still grinned maniacally as the blood oozed out of him. I pushed him up and away from me as I bucked and twisted frantically. He finally rolled off to my left and my thumb came free of his eye socket. I heard him kicking and thumping away from me as he retreated into the darkness. I sat up with the child and quickly searched to my right for my gun. I found it quickly and snatched it up and scanned the room. I didn't see Zeke, but I scanned back and forth repeatedly. The child resumed its deafening scream and I could feel my heart pounding through my entire body. After a couple of moments of pointing my weapon at the dark and cradling the child, my mind began to work again. I noticed how strange my weapon felt in my blood-covered hand. I noticed the screaming baby sounded loud and healthy. And I noticed that we were both alone. Alone. The child's mother was missing. I sat there overwhelmed, but first things first, I had to deal with the infant in my arms. Retrieving my light, I slowly stood and searched the room for a safe place to lay my screaming bundle. I settled with placing the baby on the floor and building up a pillow fort around it with throw pillows. I could feel precious seconds being wasted. As much as I had wanted to stay with the baby, the longer that Zeke was alone with the mother, the worse. With trepidation, I stood to face the hallway. Zeke must have taken her back there. I stepped forward, deciding on the door to my right first. My kick blasted the door open as my light flooded the room. It revealed a woman's bedroom that had been completely trashed. It looked like an explosion had occurred from a large hole in the center of the room. Wood and torn carpet was scattered all across the area. The flooring was bent up and outwards like something had come up through from the bottom. I leaned over the hole to see down into the muddy ground beneath. Is this how Zeke got in? It looked like the Hulk had smashed his way up through the floor. Any other time I wouldn't believe it, but sanity had left the moment that I was dispatched to this house. I knew that he could still be down there with her, If I had crawled down there, I would be putting myself in dangerously tight corridors with Zeke again. I didn't want another wrestling rematch with his freakish strength. A bolt of lightning crashed somewhere close, the bright strobe outlining a tall figure outside the bedroom window. I looked up to only catch a glimpse of it before it vanished, but it was an imposing humanoid figure of blackness with purple reflecting eyes. It must have been 10 feet tall, pressing its hands and face against the other side of the glass. As quickly as I saw it, it winked out of existence, only the after image of it in my mind. I shuffled around the hole to look out the window. Standing further out in the backyard was a group of shadows. I didn't have to wait long for another lightning strike to illuminate the night. What the light exposed hardly surprised me, but it made me shudder anyways. It was Zeke, soaking in the rain, his outstretched arm holding the mother up by the back of her neck to face me. The unnatural ease in which he held her outwards was as effortless as he had held the baby. It was as if he was presenting her to me. A twisted grin dominated his bloodied, one-eyed face as she hung limply. He beckoned to me with his free hand to come before turning curly and strolling for the woods with her. I spat a curse at him as he faded into the trees. I had to get her back. I could care less if he got away in the end, but I couldn't live with my final memory of her being taken by that grinning Cyclops. He had sought her out this night. I had to stop whatever morbid plans that he had for her. I ran back into the kitchen and located the back door. I flew out into the cold rain, jumping down the slick steps and sprinting towards the woods. I could see where the foliage parted to make a small pathway. This was around the place that I had last spotted Zeke. He must have taken it. Once I hit the tree line, my momentum almost came to a stop. The water sloshed up to my knees as I took heavy steps forward. After trudging a few yards into the woods, I spotted a glimpse of movement pulling away from me. Every time that I thought that I lost Zeke's trail, I would see him slipping further into the darkness, dragging that poor woman with him. My legs burned as I forced myself forward through the deep foliage. I tried to keep Zeke in my sights through blinding trees and vines. I don't know how long I chased after him. Time did its weird thing again. I fell into a fugue state of desperation and exhaustion. All I knew is that I had to keep moving forward. Though I was surrounded by a thick forest, I felt isolated, like I was floating in the void of space, or standing at the edge of a great chasm. The darkness outside the reach of my light was a void into nothing. It seemed that only the immediate area where I stood was solid, and the only things tangible around me were the figures that my light discovered. As soon as I moved past the ground that I stood on, or my light passed by the surroundings, the matter returned to nothing. I could fall into the abyss and never be heard from again. Another soul lost to the forest. How long would it take before people noticed that I was missing? Maybe it would be deemed important enough for a small local news report. My sheriff might call in reserves and troopers to have the woods searched for me. But after a couple of weeks, it would be called off. It's too expensive to keep it up. I know because I've seen it happen a couple of times. I would just be gone. No one would really know that I had been swallowed up by despair, that I had glitched out of this reality to be forever falling into darkness. In my grim reverie of stalking after Zeke, I was vaguely aware of something shadowing me. From my peripherals, I would catch the dark figure with purple eyes keeping pace with me. I could smell the stink of BO and bad breath wafting around me. I wanted to turn my head and face the creature directly, but I was too afraid to lose track of Zeke. He was pulling further and further away from me as my body screamed to rest. Zeke disappeared through some shrubbery and I yelled in frustration as I urged myself to speed up. The corners of my vision faded and I knew that I was on the verge of passing out, on the cusp of falling into the water in exhaustion. I broke through the shrubs and entered a clearing. I looked around in wonder. a perfect circle with a 30-yard diameter. In the middle of the clearing stood an old tree stump jutting 3 feet out of the water. I could see a small sapling shooting out of the dead tree, its skinny branches reaching about 15 feet above the water. With a flash of lightning, I noticed Zeke standing next to the tree, holding the slumping woman by the collar.
major FPS drop in Fort and updating the graphic drivers updated and background as CPU temperature under 70. Consider upgrading it. बैकग्राउंड एप्स में भी कुछ नहीं चल
हाँ भाई बोलो।
क्या तू क्या सोने चला गया था क्या?
हाँ सोने ही गया था।
अबे यार
बता बता।
मैं जानबूझ के हट गया था डिस्कॉर्ड पे से वो इनके सी यार बहुत ही
छोड़ दे भाई।
क्या छोड़ दे, मैं तो कुछ कर भी नहीं रहा था, मैं क्या बोलूं, मेरे को समझ में नहीं आ रहा क्या दिक्कत थी।
ठीक है रे, उसका तेरे को पता ही है, वैसा ही चलता है उसका, इतना कुछ सोचने का ही नहीं।
और मेरे को एक तो भाई, एक तो मेरे को इसमें समझ में नहीं आ रहा, मेरे को FPS ड्रॉप आ रहा है पता है फोर्टनाइट में।
क्या मेरे को पता है कैसा आ रहा है।
वो पता है, थोड़ा बहुत भी नहीं, वो सीधा 10-11 पे जा रहा है।
वो मुझे कुछ आइडिया नहीं, मैं खेला ही नहीं वो गेम
और मेरे को
इतने टाइम
समझ
से।
में नहीं आ रहा कि क्यों हो जा रहा है इतना FPS ड्रॉप।
आंसर रहेगा कुछ तो।
बैकग्राउंड में कोई ऐप नहीं चल रहे पूरे, सब बंद करके रखा है।
हम्म।
सिर्फ OBS स्टूडियो चल रहा है, मैं सोच रहा हूँ वो भी बंद कर देता हूँ थोड़ी देर।